Hello, it's Ryan here, or Daring Hobbit. A little while ago, I had a conversation with a couple of gentlemen about imagination. And during the conversation, I poorly explained a beautiful story by Tolkien that is found in the Silmarillion. This is my copy of the Silmarillion that I've had since a youngster. It is falling apart. It's an amazing work. And so this conversation reminded me of the chapter that I wanted to read. And so my hope is here to read you a chapter out of the Silmarillion. Now, the conversation was imagination and God, and we were getting into humans and us being what Tolkien calls sub-creators, and how sometimes sub-creation can be good and how sub-creation can be bad, depending on your intention and your thought. And this chapter in the Silmarillion is where Tolkien beautifully lays out this idea of subcreation and how subcreation can be good, how it can be bad, and how God can use it for good. But a little bit of background, if you've never interacted with the Silmarillion at all in any way, because I know many of the gents on there said that they hadn't interacted with the Silmarillion. It is like the Old Testament, but the history of elves. That's what I tell people when they try to read it. This is probably my favorite chapter from it, besides the first two chapters. But essentially what's happening in the story so far, we're only in chapter 2, but the introduction to the book lays out the characters, and it lays out the main god. So here's some characters that will play in this chapter. You have the main god, which is named Iluvatar. So he is the creator of the music. He is the creator of everything. He creates the Valar, which are essentially, think of them as demigods. So they are divine beings that have tied themselves to Middle-earth, and they are over certain realms. So they're not really demigods, but they essentially are. They're between the all other creation and Iluvatar. They're managing beings. And so in here you have the main god, Iluvatar, but then the story centers mostly about 3 of the demigods, which are called Valar. You have Aulë and Yavana. So Aulë is over all of the things that are like smithcraft. He's over smithcraft and ironworking and that sort of things. And then Yavana is over all of the things that grow upon the earth. And the head of the Valar, which is the 3rd Valar we'll meet in the story, is named Manwë. And Manwë is the head of the Valar, and he's also over the skies. He manages the skies. And so this is the stories of how their beings come into existence. And so the last thing I'll mention before I get into the passage is that you will hear mention of the music, because essentially how Tolkien creates the story in the introduction, the Ainulindale, and the Valaquenta, is essentially everything is created first or seen first by the Valar. So Iluvatar and the Valar, they're all ethereal spirits, and then Iluvatar sets forth music, and the Valar listen to the music, and they see in the music things that are to come. And then they take on some sort of quasi-physical spiritual form, and they start to create the things that they heard in the music of Iluvatar. And so when Manwë starts discussing the music, it is the music that he heard before time began, which was the purpose of Iluvatar originally, and then starts creating things so that they can play along with the music. And they also know that one day the firstborn, which are elves, are going to come into the earth. And then someday after that, the secondborn, which are humans, are going to come into the earth. So they've created the earth at this point, and they're waiting for the firstborn, which are the elves, to come into the earth. And that's where we'll pick up with chapter 2 of Aulë and Yavana. It is told that in their beginning, the dwarves were made by Aulë in the darkness of Middle-earth. For so greatly did Aulë desire the coming of children, to have learners to whom he could teach his lore and his crafts. that he was unwilling to wait the fulfillment of the designs of Iluvatar. And Aulë made the dwarves, even as they still are, because the forms of children who were to come were unclear in his mind, because the power of Melkor was not yet over earth. And he wished, therefore, that they should be strong and unyielding. Melkor's the evil guy. But fearing that the other Valar might blame his works, he wrought in secret. And he made the first of the 7 fathers of the dwarves in a hall under the mountains in Middle-earth. Now Iluvatar knew what was done, and in that very hour that Aulë's work was complete, and he was pleased and began to instruct the dwarves in speech that he had devised for them. Iluvatar spoke to him, and Aulë heard his voice and was silent. And the voice of Iluvatar said to him, "Why hast thou done this? Why dost thou attempt a thing which thou knowest is beyond thy power and thy authority? For thou hast from me as a gift thy own being only, and no more. And therefore the creatures of thy hand and thy mind can live only by that being, moving when thou thinkest to move them. And if thy thought be elsewhere, standing idle, is that thy desire?" Then Aulë answered, "I did not desire such lordship. I desire things other than I am, to love them and to teach them, so that they might too perceive the beauty of Ea, which thou hast caused to be. For it seemed to me that there is great room in Arda for many beings that might rejoice in it, and yet it is for the most part still empty and dumb. And in my impatience I have fallen into folly. Yet the making of things is in my heart from my own making by thee. And the child of little understanding that makes play of the deeds of his father may do so without thought or mockery, but because he is the son of the Father. But what shall I do now, so that thou dost not be angry with me forever? As a child to his father, I offer these things, the work of thy hands which thou hast made. Do with them what thou wilt. But should I not rather destroy the work of my presumption?" Then Aulë took up a great hammer to smite the dwarves, and he wept. But Iluvatar had compassion on Aulë and his desire because of his humility. And the dwarves shrank from the hammer and were afraid. And they bowed down their heads and begged for mercy. And the voice of Iluvatar said to Aulë, "Thy offer I accept, even as it was made. Dost thou not see that these things have now a life of their own and speak with their own voices? Else they would not have flinched from thy blow, nor from thy command of thy will." Then Aulë cast down his hammer and was glad, and he gave thanks to Iluvatar, saying, "May Eru bless the work and amend it." But Iluvatar spoke again and said, "Even as I gave being to the thoughts of the Ainur at the beginning of the world, so now I have taken up thy desire and given it place therein. But in no other way will I amend thy handiwork. And as thou hast made it, so it shall be. But I will not suffer this, that these should come before the firstborn of my design, nor that thy impatience should be rewarded. Then they shall sleep from now in the darkness under the stone, and shall not come forth until the firstborn have awakened upon the earth. And until that time, thou and they shall wait, though long it seem. But when the time comes, I will awaken them, and they shall be to thee as children. And often strife shall arise between thine and mine, the children of my adoption and the children of my choice." Then Aulë took the 7 fathers of the dwarves and laid them to rest in far sundered places, and he returned to Valinor and waited while the long years lengthened. Since they were to come the days of Melkor, Aulë made the dwarves strong to endure. Therefore they are stone-hearted, stubborn, fast in friendship and in enmity. And they suffer toil and hunger and hurt of body more heartily than all other speaking peoples, and they live long, far beyond the span of men, yet not forever. Aforetime it was held among the elves in Middle-earth that the dying of the dwarves returned to the earth and the stone which where they were made. Yet that is not their own belief. For they say that Aulë, the maker, whom they call Mahal, cares for them and gathers them to Mandos in halls set apart, and that he declared to their fathers of old that Iluvatar will hallow them and give them a place among the children in the end. and their part shall be to serve Aulë and to aid him in the remaking of Arda after the last battle. They say also that the seven fathers of the dwarves return to live again, and their own kin to bear once more their ancient names, of whom Durin was the most renowned in age after, father of the kindred most friendly to the elves, whose mansions are at Khazad-dûm. Now, when Aulë labored in the making of the dwarves, he kept this work hidden from the other Valar. But at last he opened his mind to Yavana and told her of all that had come to pass. Then Yavana said to him, Eru is merciful, but now I see that thy heart rejoice as indeed it may, for thou hast received not only forgiveness, but bounty. Yet because thou hiddest this thought from me until its achievement, thy children will have little love for these things of my love. They will love first the things made by their own hands as their father. They will delve into the earth, and the things that grow and live upon the earth they will not heed. Many a tree shall feel the bite of their iron without pity. But Aulë answered, so shall also be true of children of Ilúvatar, for they will eat and they will build. And though the things of thy realm have worth in themselves, and would have worth if no children were to come, yet Eru will give them dominion, and they shall use all that they find in Arda, though not by the purpose of Eru, without respect or without gratitude. Not unless Melkor darkens their hearts, said Yavana, and she was not appeased, but grieved in her heart, fearing that what might be done upon Middle Earth in the days to come. Therefore she went before Manwë, and she did not betray the counsel of Aulë, but she said, King of Arda, is it true, as Aulë has said to me, that the children, when they come, shall have dominion over all things of my labor, and do as they will? It is true, said Manwë. But why dost thou ask? For thou hast no need of the teaching of Aulë. Then Yavana was silent and looked into her own thought, and she answered, because my heart is anxious, thinking of the days to come. All my works are dear to me. Is it not enough that Melkor should have marred so many? Shall nothing that I have devised be free from the dominion of others? If thou hadst thy will, what wouldst thou reserve? Said Manwë. Of all thy realm, what dost thou host dearest? All have their worth, said Yavana, and each contributes to the worth of others. But the Kelvar can flee and defend themselves, whereas the Olvar that grow cannot. And among these, I hold trees dear. Long in the growing, swift shall they be in the felling. And unless they pay toll with fruit upon bough, little mourned in their passing. So I see them in my thought. Would that the trees might speak on behalf of all things that have roots and punish those who have done them wrong. This is a strange thought, said Manwë. Yet it was in the song, said Yavana, for while thou wert in the heavens, and with Olmo built the clouds and poured out the rains, I lifted up the branches of great trees to receive them, and some sang to Ilúvatar among the wind and the rain. Then Manwë sat silent, and the thought of Yavana that she had put into his heart grew and unfolded, and it was beheld by Ilúvatar. And it seemed to Manwë that the song rose once more about him, and he heeded now many things therein that though he had heard them, had not heeded before. And at last the vision was renewed, but now it was not remote, for he himself with it, for he was himself within it. And yet he saw that all was upheld by the hand of Ilúvatar, and the hand entered in, and from it came forth many wonders that had until then been hidden from him in the hearts of the Ainur. Then Manwë awoke and went down to Yavana upon Zelahar, and he sat beside her beneath the two trees, and Manwë said, O Kimentari, Aruth has spoken, saying, do then any of the Valar suppose that I did not hear all the song, even the least sound among the least voice? Behold, when the children awake, then the thought of Yavana shall awake also, and it will summon spirits from afar, and they will go into the Kelvar and the Olvar, and some will dwell therein and be held in reverence, and their just anger shall be feared for a time. Well, the firstborn are in power, when the secondborn are young. But dost thou not now remember, Kementari, that thy thought sang, not always alone? Did not thy thought and mine also meet, so that we took wing together like great birds that soar above the clouds? And also shall come to be by thy heed of Iluvatar. And before the children awake, there shall go forth with wings like the wings of eagles of the lords of the west. Then Yavana was glad, and she stood up, reaching her arms out towards the heavens, and she said, high shall climb the trees of Kementari, and the eagles of the king may house therein. But Manwe rose also, and it seemed that he stood to such a height that his voice came down to Yavana as from the paths of the wind. Nay, he said, only the trees of Aulë will be tall enough. In the mountains the eagles shall house, and hear the voices of those who call upon us. But in the forest shall walk the shepherd of the trees. Then Manwe and Yavana parted for a time, and Yavana returned to Aulë. And he was in his smithy, pouring molten metal into the mold. Baru is bountiful, she said. Now let thy children be aware, for there shall walk a power in the forest whose wrath they will arouse at their peril. Nonetheless, they will have need of wood, said Aulë. And he went on with his smith work. It's so good. It's so good. And so here we have in this chapter of Aulë and Yavana, the making of the dwarves, but also the ents and the eagles, and the hearing of the music. So there's so much that can be pulled from this, and I hope that many of us see this and pull things out of it and apart from it, because I really think that this chapter is the core of what Tolkien means when he talks about being a subcreator and how subcreation can go well, like Manwe, and listening to the song, and how subcreation has the potential to go awry if we try to contrive things from our own being without listening to the music. So I hope people find this and discuss it. That's all. Thanks, guys.